Good morning, YouTube. Let's have a discussion about CNC Motors with Naveed Jamali.
So are you recording all of the nefarious activities?
If you're new to the channel, my name is Dan, this is my garage, and this channel is all about the supercar ownership experience. And as you know, we've been doing a lengthy series about the horrible stuff at CNC Motors. As of the recording of this video, there are 38 entries to my forum, which means there's 38 stories about their situation with CNC Motors. I haven't verified all of those, so I can't say for certain that all of those are legitimate. If true, the total dollar value at this point is over $7 million that are missing in either cars or titles or actual money. So it seems to be getting bigger and bigger, and every time I do a video, I get more and more entries. In fact, after the last video, it jumped from 25 to 37 in less than 24 hours. So it's pretty concerning. So if you believe you are a victim of this situation, please go to ngsc.me/CNC and fill out the form and give me as much information as you can. At this point, I really need people to make sure that they have a DMV report number, an incident number. So I'm trying to gather those. It's very important that you do that. So please send those to me and make sure that that's included on the form. And also, I'm gonna do a bit of quick self-promotion because, well, this is my channel. So if you happen to have a supercar and need to buy some parts, go visit my website, normalguysupercar.com. Use the code NGS10 and it knocks off 10%. Also, if you happen to be looking to buy or sell a supercar and, well, maybe you want to avoid this sort of situation, you can hire me as a consultant. So that is one of the services that I offer. Go check that out again on my website, normalguysupercar.com. So I appreciate when you guys do those things. That does support me and help me keep this channel running. So we're gonna talk with Naveed Jamali. He reached out to me. He is the editor at large at Newsweek. He is also a former FBI double agent, and he wrote a book called How to Catch a Russian Spy, which I'll admit I'm actually going to read now. So I was like, that sounds really fascinating. So turns out he's a major gearhead, and he just felt like he needed to say something about the situation. We had a lengthy discussion, so all of you that have short attention spans, I apologize. Those of you that are very interested in the situation, you're going to love this. You're gonna wanna watch all of this. The entire conversation was amazing, and I looked down, I was like, oh my God, we've been talking for over an hour and I didn't even realize it. Here you go, here's my conversation with Naveed. We're joined tonight with Naveed Jamali, and he is a car enthusiast and just happens to also be the editor at large of Newsweek. And he reached out to me and just kind of wanted to tell his opinions on the situation because it's fascinating and troubling.
It is. And kudos to you, Dan. I mean, it really, you know, it was kind of like car drama porn for me to watch this. Like, I clicked on the first episode, I was like, you know, I wonder what happens, I wonder what's going on with that. It's sort of one of those, like, earwigs that kind of stuck with me. So I've watched all your episodes, and I find that these are always, it's like a whodunit, kind of. You know, it always, I think, you know, of course, there's no murder, thank God. Right. But you know, you always want to know what's going on. And I think that's these kind of stories always, whether you're, you know, a Ferrari aficionado or not, there's something about, you know, a villain and a victim and trying to get justice that appeals to people. So kudos to you for putting together a story that I think, you know,
unintentionally, I would almost argue forced.
Yes. I know you were an almost unwilling, you know, champion of the truth in the American way. So,
damn you, Shane.
Right?
Yeah, I need to.
So, but you know, I think it's a really interesting case, and obviously, you know, in my opinion, as you know, we had a chance to talk about this. I think the thing that, taking a step back and taking a little bit of the emotion out of it, that I think people should understand is that investigations like this, even though there's you personally have spoken to in the 20s, right, in terms of people that have been directly impacted by this.
Actually,
is it more than that?
As of this moment, the list is up to 37.
Wow. So 37, it's a pretty dramatic number, right? And we're probably talking close to $1 million, $2 million at least, in terms of cars that are.
I summed it up.
Is it?
It's at 7 million.
7. Wow. So that's a big number, obviously. For, you know, this is not.
And it's unverified, right? Like I can't.
Right.
Can't prove all that.
So, you know, I think what would be helpful is talk a little bit, like, from a journalistic standpoint and from an investigator standpoint, sort of how you have to approach this. And I think it might give people sort of a sense of, you know, I can understand the frustration that there's an appearance that nothing's happening, and there very well may not be much going on. But on the other hand, there could be things going on. So let's assume that there are, and let's talk a little bit about the process. Look, even though you've spoken to 37 people that have been impacted by this, whether you're a journalist or investigator, you still have to validate that those people, they own the cars were in fact dropped off, and that they no longer have possession. Seems like a simple, rudimentary, basic thing, but you have to be able to independently confirm that. And so an investigator, just like a journalist, is going to approach that the same way. But as we've talked about, it sounds like the 37 people you've spoken to, they're on the selling side, right? So they're the ones who have consigned the cars.
It's mixed.
Mixed, but a majority of them are on the consignment
I would
side,
say
right?
it's probably 75-25.
Yeah. So the issue here is that the challenge, as I've heard, is that the local police are saying this is a civil matter. You have to go to it's a contract dispute. You can't mark it as a stolen car. You can't get a police report. Which admittedly, that would be if I was in this situation, I'd be looking to get a police report so I could file an insurance claim and just be made whole with my insurance. And maddeningly for these poor people is that without that insurance. Without that police report, they can't even file an insurance claim. So they're paying insurance, they're paying their note, and they now risk the challenge of potentially having to go to civil court with someone who very well may be bankrupt and gone, at any point. I mean, that's what it would, it would appear that there's a significant risk of that. But if you're an investigator, you got to put the other part of this. You have the people that have put their cars in consignment. Are there people that in fact have cars and no title? So can you find someone who's consigned a car, has been told their car is sold, they no longer can get their car, and then find the person who that car has been sold to? Even if you find one of those instead of the 37, that would be enough as an investigator or a journalist to really build something on that, because now you have a presentation for both sides of this, whatever this equation is. But it sure does sound like this is not an accounting error, right? It doesn't.
no. Like Bill down in accounting didn't forget to put the decimal point.
Right. The valet didn't forget where he parked the car. Right. It's I mean, it's like one is perhaps an unhappy coincidence, but 37, that's something else. And to make matters even more treacherous and tricky, is that if we're talking about people across state lines, now we're talking about a federal beef, and $7 million. So anyone who's ever dealt with law enforcement and white collar investigation, the sad truth is that they really do have an unofficial sort of number about where they're going to get up to look into something. And a lot of times criminals live right below that threshold, and it's just not worth, unfortunately, for people to be investigated or prosecuted, because the amount of time and resources are incredibly limited. $7 million, though, that's got to be a hell of a motivator for someone.
I would hope.
But again, the challenge, I think, with that is, again, connecting all the dots. So if I were to, write a story on this, like, you literally would have to go through all those 37 and confirm, in fact, they did have a car, the car was at CNC, that it's no longer in their possession. And, that is not an insignificant effort, but it's the basis of sort of how things progress. People still have a right to not be accused of something that they haven't done. So those simple facts. Then there's the other part, which is, the politics of this. And there's always politics, right? We're in the middle of a pandemic. It's sort of, if you're an elected official or you're an appointed official who's deciding what to appoint your scarce resources of investigators and prosecutors to, there's competition. We're in a pandemic, right? There's, people that do all sorts of things. And also I don't know how interested some of these people may be. In fact, it's one of those times where the fact that the number is so high and that it's Ferrari owners, I hate to say it, I don't want to imply that if it was Lamborghini owners or not hypercar or supercar, but there is this sort of perception that may work against their favor in terms of the.
Maybe that's what I need to do is switch to talking to some of the normal folk, because there's some really average everyone assumes, it's CNC, therefore it's all Ferraris and whatever.
Yeah.
But actually, a substantial number of the people on that list are regular cars, or
No
fairly
doubt about it.
attainable cars, I should say.
Yeah, and but this is, this is the dirty truth when it comes to this sort of stuff is there's reality and there's perception, and perception always wins out with these things.
Sure.
Right? I mean, that's the
Well,
challenge.
and frankly, if the story was, oh man, like someone stole a bunch of Toyota Camrys, no one's gonna care, right? Like,
Yeah, right, that too.
Yeah.
Right, but like to give an example, I remember talking to someone who's investigating, a federal law enforcement official investigating a number for a crime that was considerably less, but the victim was a disabled, naval aviator who had suffered traumatic brain injury and was, had limited mental capacity. And in that case, there's obviously people were practically tripping over themselves to prosecute and investigate. Right?
Yeah.
So we can't forget the perception issue here. But man, it sure does sound. I've made some phone calls. I've reached out to some people just because it's curious. And while I can't, journalistic do ethics, you can't I can't say what they've told me. I think there is clearly an awareness that something has transpired. I know that there's the California DMV is involved, and I'm not sure I fully understand what their authorities are to investigate. I know we've discussed their peace officers, right?
Yeah.
But this really does sound like it's something that's probably a federal beef, if not at the state level, especially if it involves wire transfers and stuff with banks and across state line. It becomes, the sophistication would apparently warrant that you look at something at that level, and that's not to assume that they aren't, right? I mean, you would think that a $7 million number might attract some attention.
Well, I mean, I don't even know if they know it's $7 million, right?
Yeah.
Like, based on the data that people submitted to me, a lot of them did not contact the DMV.
Yeah, that's so curious to me. Why do you think that is?
I think they just didn't believe like the bureaucracy is going to help them, right? Like, or they just didn't know. Like I think a lot of these people just don't know what to do. Like maybe. Also, I think there's even people still contacting me that say they're not even sure that like what's going on is potentially fraud. They're still making excuses. They're still like, oh well, I think I'm still going to get paid because I talked to Clay and he says he's going to pay me, and I'm like, I hate to tell you.
It's like that. I think we've all been there where you're in that situation where you're like, oh, shit, this just happened. And you just don't want to believe it. And it's hard. I think everyone can relate to that.
I mean, you get pissed off if you lose $100. I can't imagine losing 100,000.
No, I don't even know I don't even know what you do. I mean, but yeah, look, I can tell you as a journalist that having official documentation that says, especially if you go to the DMV and you have a report, you're swearing that report is in fact, truthful.
Right.
And so that does add, from a bureaucratic standpoint, that makes verification of all the stuff I told at the beginning a lot easier. So whether it's a journalist or whether it's a state or federal investigator or local investigator, I would imagine that if you are one of these people, having that document very well, it may not solve your problem, but it at least legitimizes this. And look, these are bureaucrats, right? So the more reports they have, the more the priority is going to bubble up, one would think.
Sure.
And I'm sure that they're. I think at least the DMV, from what I gather, they have to be aware that something is amiss. But
yes,
I don't know what oversight they have. Can they pull this guy's license? Can they?
Well, they definitely can pull his license, from what I've figured out. But I don't know if the one question I have is do they have the power to arrest people? Which I've heard they do. I've heard they have the same authorities as a regular police officer. So
but what does that? I mean, okay, so let's talk that through for a second.
Yeah.
What does that actually? What does that solve? Right? Because with COVID, people, and with bail reform, a lot of places. What does arresting actually mean? Does that mean that he's not going to be out, within a few hours even? And I'm not. I'm not taking a moral stance for or against that. I mean, just factually, we're still in a pandemic. They tend not to. This is definitely not a violent crime, right?
No.
So this claim that he's a danger to the public and all that. So again, I don't know how that would solve getting people their cars back, or people that have paid for these cars their money back.
Yeah, it may not. That's a really interesting point. The only thing I'm really curious about is why he still has a license to operate. That is fascinating to me, because there's more people that have gotten into this mess since this stuff started becoming public. And that's actually the motivator behind why I started kind of pursuing this aggressively, is I felt like if the word didn't get out, there's innocent people right now who are going to unwittingly become a participant. And that did not settle well on my conscience. I thought, crap, I can't let that happen, because that actually happened. One of the guys who I talked to saw my video after he had already turned in a car, and I'd already filmed the video and it hadn't gone out yet or whatever. He hadn't seen it yet. He saw it too late, literally one day too late. One day.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And that would, the state certifies these dealers. Again, I don't know. I have no idea what the state statute is, but one would imagine that they have the right to some sort of review process, some sort of administrative process. So again, we don't know. This is the problem, is that there's an assumption that nothing is happening, and I don't want to imply that there is, but again, the bureaucracy of these things dictate that this could take, just pulling his license, it may not be a simple process. I don't know if he's entitled to, they have to present him and he has 60 days to respond, or we just don't know. And you don't know that hasn't, none of us know if that has happened yet or not. I mean, I don't know if that's necessary. They have to release that to the public. And I know that people probably want to know, well, why can't you FOIA this stuff? Well, under COVID, it's actually really difficult. The state has states have a lot of latitude to not have to provide FOIA requests because of COVID. So, again, I don't want to advise anyone on what to do, but I can tell you again, the more you can document, and the more you can document with someone in an official capacity, I think that adds more legitimacy. If you call the DMV, they're going to want to know a case number. So if if someone could compile a list of all the case numbers that people have filed and then present that to a state official, that might have a little more gravitas than
that's an interesting
than an Excel list of contact names right now. Because again, for us, there's no reason to doubt those 37 people, but there is something different about having a list of people that have told you this versus a list of sworn statements given to the state, right? That is I think adds a little more, investigators like journalists are lazy. The more work you can do for them, the more likely you're going to have success.
Sure. Well, I mean, I can tell you, I already can empathize with that, because the workload that this has presented itself to me.
Yeah.
I the other day, I had been working on it so hard, I just flat out was falling asleep on a conference call.
And this is not your day job.
And right. And so I was like, holy crap, I'm literally I cannot stay awake. I'm literally falling asleep on a conference call. So I sent an email. I started a private email group with all the victims. And I just sent them an email and basically said, I'm sorry, but you guys have to take ownership of this. I can't keep doing this.
Well, and this is the thing, is that, to be fair, I mean, I know you would say you're not a journalist, but in a lot of ways, I would argue that you, in this case, and you are. You're not just a YouTube content creator. So I know you have a duty to, beyond the 37 people who've contacted you, but like you said, the general public, right? I mean, you're the one who's brought this to light, and those 37, exponentially, there could be considerably more that might get themselves in this situation if they hadn't heard about this, right?
Absolutely.
So, and again, as you commiserate with the plight of people. On the other hand, there's a difference between conveying facts to the general public and doing PR, right?
Yeah.
Or representing a group of people.
Yeah.
And I think that's everyone wants that, but that can't always be the expectation you can deliver. So
Sure.
if I was going to write about this, for example, you'd have to take a balanced approach to it, and certainly you feel bad for people on a personal level, but that's not the point of exposing this is not just to right or wrong; it's also to inform people.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it's totally true. Yeah, there's an aspect of helping people, and there's an aspect of trying to, throw up the red flag.
But man, does it? I mean, geez, Dan, it feels like we were talking about this before, the Bobby Kahn story.
Yeah.
Out in Suffolk.
Oh, it's like copy paste.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but like,
oh, this is super common. Super common.
Super, and especially you were talking about like with California, they have like, what is it, like 20 days or 30 days to like play with your money before they have to give it to you.
Yep.
It's
rife for fraud.
It is, and the whole consignment concept, I understand. I hate selling stuff. I can only imagine what it would be like to sell, $100,000+ car. I mean, no one I'm sure that you don't want to deal with it because it's a pain, but like this is something you have to be aware of, right? Like you should be aware that, and it begs the question, like when these people were doing consignments, I assume they were getting some sort of contract, and and this is something I've seen you, and talk about PPIs and all that. I mean, this could really be something to inform people about, like, hey, if you're going to sell and put your car in consignment with someone, here are the things you should consider.
Yeah.
I was shocked, and you're absolutely right. Like you see CNC, beautiful showroom, right? You have this reputation, and then they ask for the title, and they ask for a signed title before they even sold it. Like, to anyone else, that's a red flag, right?
Right.
Like if you're selling a car to a private party, they don't, when they're going to come and test drive it, they don't say, can I test drive it with a signed copy of the title first before I decide I'm going to pay for it?
Yeah, but that's the craziest part is they had such a positive reputation.
Yeah.
They had put on such a good show that people just didn't even question it, which is, I mean, I hope that like this is big enough that people see that that's a horrible, horrible idea in the future. But I mean, like, it's like you want to trust people. Everyone wants to trust people, but again, when it comes to financial matters, trust no one.
Yeah, no, it's not personal. It's just business, right?
Yep. No.
I mean, you reverse it and you say, well, if you're so confident you're going to sell the car, why don't you pay me first and then go on and sell it, right?
Yeah. Something tells me that's not good.
That would no one would ever go for that. But I think there is an important lesson, and I think that it's funny, right? Like it sounds, I hate to say it, but it does sound like an age-old scam. I mean, it's no different than like, the shell game with the cups and all that, right?
Yep.
It's a confidence game, right? Because you come in and you see this, and it was the same thing with Bobby Kahn. For those of you I'm in New York, if you've ever been out to Suffolk County, in the old showroom, it was this whole thing where it was the presentation, and the guy was leveraged up to his eyeballs where, it's the same thing. He couldn't make the note, so he's selling cars to pay off the creditors just to stay afloat, and it was only a matter of time.
Yep.
But if you walked into this, you would have no idea that there's like serious financial difficulty going on.
Yeah.
So it's a tough, and we can all be fooled by that, right? Like, and then the other thing is, I think people are probably embarrassed too. I think there's probably a lot more people.
No, there's definitely famous people involved here.
Yeah.
I've got one person on my list that I just completely am ignoring because of their publicity, the public eye of that person. So I just we'll just ignore that because I don't even want to go there. Like I don't want to, like I have, if I call up a famous person, I'm like, hi, I'm Dan, the normal guy Supercar. I've heard that you lost $1 million. They're gonna be like, what? Go away,
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's a whole other thing is that. Look, it's. Do you want to be an advocate for a group of people, or do you want to be sort of an impartial arbiter of what's happening, right? And I think that, my advice to you would be the latter, because, I think this sucks, but people do not benefit from if they believe they're a victim from remaining quiet.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, look, there's no way getting around it. You got to file something. You got to tell an official that you're the victim of this.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, I would say that not only are you harming your case and your credibility and really just your resolution, but you're also not helping your other people in the same situation. I think that it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? But the bigger the squeak, the more people that are there,
Sure.
the more attention's going to get.
Oh,
So
we've already seen that. Like already
Right.
with the people I've been dealing with, the people who have been the loudest and created the most pain in the butt situation for Clay are the ones who
Yeah.
have been recovering cars or getting paid.
yeah, I mean at this point, it doesn't sound like, and just again totally. I have no insight into this, but just my personal opinion is, if I were one of these people, I don't know that Clay is going to be able to offer any resolution without like, state. Let's take the worst. Let's speculate for a quick second here,
Sure.
totally without any. Neither of us have any insight into his finances or anything like that.
Right,
But,
right.
If this were a case where, as with Bobby Kahn, where it's essentially a pyramid where Kahn was paying off his creditors, and he was doing this, something similar where he was selling cars, pocketing the money, not paying consignment as well.
Yep.
And people end up with cars with no title, and he was using the money to essentially pay off, his credit line to try to stay afloat. So, and then of course we know what happened. He literally fled the country, and then turned himself in. I think last year, I think he was in Dubai. I forget where he was, but assuming that that's the model, that it's an unfortunate prior example. I would think that the authorities are probably have a better chance of making sure that similar collapse doesn't happen again. And he left Khan left a trail of wreckage for quite a few people. I think who it took years. Rob Ferretti has talked about this. He was one of them. Trail of wreckage that took again years for people to. I think there are people that were never made whole, sadly.
Yeah.
So I'm really miffed about. To be perfectly honest, though, one thing that does surprise me is that the police department will not issue a police report about a stolen property. It just doesn't. That doesn't make sense.
It boggles my mind.
Totally, because at a minimum, then you have the option of having insurance pay off. The people who have the car can then, potentially petition to have the title that they've paid for. But yeah, I don't understand that. I really don't. It would seem like that is something that would add a bit of resolution to people.
Yeah. That part is very fascinating. And I'm not trying to specify any police department, but there's really one police department, and so far every single person that I've talked to has said the same thing. They went to the Upland Police, and basically as soon as they mentioned CNC, they just said, "Nope, we're not going to touch it. Go talk to DMV." They wouldn't even hear them.
Right, and there may be and I don't want to imply anything other than this. This may be that may be the in fact standard, correct administrative procedure.
Right.
But there's got to be a point where, someone is holding your property, and it's no longer just a civil matter, right? Where there's the conversion component where it becomes a crime. I'm not a lawyer, don't understand, don't know the specific codes, but boy, it would seem like there'd be, some room there. And from what I understand, the insurance companies too, when they presented with, someone say, "Hey, this car's been stolen," they don't want any part of it. They want a police report, right?
Yep. Yeah. They won't take the DMV report that says the car was stolen.
That's so strange to me.
Yeah. Multiple people have confirmed that. They took the DMV reports to their insurance, and the insurance said, "Nope, it's not a real police report."
That again, this is where strength in numbers can happen. Where even if that investigator has limited, police authority to do certain things, you would think that the DMV can make a call to a police agency and have a discussion about how to handle this.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean that's what I would see happening.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have to assume that since I, as a reasonably small YouTuber, am in very short order able to collect 37 people, 37 unique stories in a little over 2 weeks now, right? I have to assume that the police department and the DMV have had substantially more than that. They have to. I hope.
It would be it'd be a reasonable assumption, but I have to say that it is true that a lot of people, for a lot of different reasons, who are victims of things, just don't want to report it, don't want to go to the police necessarily, and you don't know it. But again, this could be something because of the involvement of potential wire or bank fraud or things of that nature. A local police department's gonna look at this legitimately and say, well, we can't investigate a crime that involves interstate bank fraud.
Yeah,
for example.
that's true, absolutely. Yeah, it's for the feds.
Yeah, exactly. And then the feds are gonna say, well, even if one person shows up, here's the problem with the feds is that unless they know the totality of the value, the number of victims, and the totality of that number, that loss, one person going up to them, they're not going to look at $200,000 car case, car fraud or whatever, bank fraud or whatever it might be. It's just not going to. $7 million, you would think. I think the Los Angeles field office, that is something that you would imagine would get their attention. But again, it has to be. That's why I would say, if you have a list of case numbers that can confirm that there are in fact 37 victims, and here are the corresponding case numbers, and here's the total loss. That makes it a much more compelling argument, to go to an assistant U.S. attorney or a field office. I mean, that would be, or even a newspaper and a news outlet. That becomes, now you have verified victims, verified loss. And that's pretty compelling, especially $7 million. Good God.
Yeah, a lot of that. There's one guy I need to talk to still. So these they get submitted to my forum. I'm trying to call most of them. I stopped calling them because it just was taking too much of my time, and so I've had other people helping me confirm them. But one person in the last 24 hours submitted a claim for a really expensive vehicle, valued over many millions of dollars, and so I haven't called that person yet because I was I was just too busy today. But I'm going to call them and verify it. But that would shave still, even without that, it's still I think about $4 million.
Okay,
on my list.
You were saying it's about 75% of it is people who are on the selling and 25 are on the buying. It might even be a little bit more than 75% are the sellers. So, you think about that. So if it's 4 million, because assume that's, let's just say it's the lower number. That assumes that 2 to 3 million of it is the sellers, right? So you have to assume that if those cars are gone and not in the showroom, that someone paid for those. So that 2 to 3 million is actually
in his pocket.
One part of the equation, right? It's actually 4 to 6 million because someone on the other end paid $4 to $6 million for those cars.
And there's probably, if there's 37 people and let's say 30 of them are sellers, that means there's 30 buyers out there that might not have a title.
Yeah, and they paid cash. So they're also
a lot of them for sure. Or like in the case of Shane's car, the person paid cash, did a loan, and traded it in a car.
Jeez. Right. So you think about. So you have to factor in that for every car that's reported to you as a sold car, and the owner is the original owner of the car. and say it's $100,000, then it's actually $200,000 because
Yep.
conceivably someone's paid another $100,000, whether cash or loans or trades. So that number, again, wow, that is that's a pretty. And what do you do if you have one of these cars with no title? Like, how are you?
You can't register it. Like,
Are they driving around with dealer plate? Like,
I guess
what are they doing?
they have to be. That's the crazy part to me. Is like I said, we talked about this over the phone last night. I said, in 3 to 6 months, there's going to be an onslaught of people that suddenly realize that their car is not legal to drive, and they had no idea. Because
When people like drop off their cars for consignment, do they leave their license plates on them?
probably not usually, but I bet a lot of times, yeah.
So
Yeah.
you think about it, then
Maybe they got
that
the
plate.
plate on it. Yeah.
Yeah, someone's driving around with their old plate and just like, I'll just use this until
Yeah, but
they
I
have
mean,
insurance.
like,
The cars are insured, right?
yeah,
Because
they're definitely insured. It makes sense because, like, I admit, when I buy a car, I don't necessarily think about, oh, when's my title coming? Like, you forget about it. And, like, I forgot about my 599. When I bought my 599, I totally forgot that I didn't have the title. And it was like 3-4 months later, and all of a sudden I go, holy crap, I don't have a title. I don't have, like, oh my God. And I didn't have it. I didn't have to worry about it because my car was torn apart in a garage, so it wasn't driving. So I didn't care about the registration. But I'm like, oh my God, my car is, I can't register. So anyway, we had to call the dealership, and thankfully they were, like, oh yeah, well the owner was supposed to send it to you. They didn't, and so we put pressure on the owner, and the owner shipped it to me.
How do you? I mean, here's a question. So I mean, like you, I've bought fair share of new and used cars and private party, big dealerships, little dealerships. How do you? What's the way to like, get ahead of this? Because it does seem like, it's not like you're meeting someone on a street corner
Yeah.
who's, selling you a car.
This
I
is the
mean,
hard part because I thought about this. I'm like, here's the stupidest thing about it. The dealership might even have the title, right? Because I was thinking, you need to ask, like, obviously, if you're going to go buy a car that's used from a dealership, you need to first ask, like, do you own the car or is it on consignment? And if they own it, it's pretty cut and dry. But if it's on consignment, then you need to say, okay, do you have the title, or does the owner have the title, or does a bank have the title, right? Those are the three possibilities. And the bank one seems like the most legit, because if you pay off the bank's going to send you the title. Like, they're not going to mess around, right?
Yeah.
But if you pay the dealership has to pay the bank. They may not. So that's out of your control. You really can't force that. And then
But it's the same with a private sale, right? If that's
if you do a private sale, the same thing. The person could not pay off the loan, and then you'd have to pursue them in civil court. So that's
these are things I never. You look, how many cars? You've probably bought 100 cars. I'm
lot.
guessing easily, right?
Not that many, but at least 50.
Okay, but it's reasonably probably more than the average.
Well,
American,
and I've been a part of hundreds of transactions now with what I'm doing.
Have you ever seen a situation? Maybe it's where that has actually happened, where someone has paid a seller for a car, and the seller has not paid off the bank, or
it might have happened. But at that point, it's never happened.
Seems so rare, right? It just seems like such a rarity.
Maybe. I hope it's rare.
Well, I guess I'm just saying it's one of those things where it's like there's always a trust level there. It's something I've never really considered. I mean, and to be honest, I don't think I ever sold a car that short of trading it into a dealer that didn't have a note, or had a note on it rather.
Yeah.
And so I mean, but like,
I've had to do that. It's a little weird. I've had that happen. You have to like get a check, and then send the check to your bank, and then once the bank pays off, the bank actually sends the title to you, and then you have to send the title after signing it, whatever. So it's a little bit. I mean, that's a lot of steps and easy to screw up.
Or if you're someone who's less than ethical, right?
Right.
It's funny, but like, you think about it, like, boy, we are a trusting lot to go through that, because there's so much room for someone to take advantage of it. And I gotta tell you, knock on wood, but in like all the car transactions, that's never something that's happened.
Yeah.
which
Well,
is weird.
I think, fortunately, as much as dealerships get a bad rap, the majority of them are honest.
Well, look, everything is built on reputation, right? And unless this car that you're selling is going to make you for the rest of your career, it's not worth screwing people over,
Right.
That reputation, and I think most people understand that, and most dealerships, whether they're totally, scrupulous or not, you know, uh, I'm sure they understand that too. That would be, there's a big difference between trying to squeeze the last, nickel and dime out of a buyer and like, committing fraud. I feel like that's a pretty big
it's a big step. Yeah.
No one's gonna say like, oh, I overpaid for a car. That's not quite the same thing as like, oh, I overpaid for a car and I didn't get a title and the car may be stolen. Like, those are two.
Yeah.
It just seems like, I don't know. Yeah, I feel really bad for these people, and it's man, it is definitely it's funny because obviously the used car market is really hot right now, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are looking to move cars, and in a weird way, certain cars become even places to park your money, and a lot of stuff going on there. But I guess it's unfortunate because this is not I guess what I was trying to say with like the transactions, all the cars we've sold and we've never had a problem, is that this is still such a rarity, I think.
Yeah.
In buying or selling a car.
Sure. But at least the good news is I think there's a lot of people that never thought about that. I mean, I personally didn't really ever think about it. I clearly didn't think about it with my 599.
Yeah. I mean, like when you did, and even when people came to you to help with PPIs and stuff, right? Like,
you usually didn't really care that much about the title part of it because it was like, oh yeah,
No, I mean, is that something you think as doing a PPI you would
Well, that's
include in the PPI?
I don't know if it'd be the PPI is usually technical, right? So you've usually got a technician. So I'm gonna say it's not the PPI, it's not the technician's responsibility, but it is like when people hire me as a consultant, I feel like that's now something I have to be aware of. Like I have to help them with that. Because
Carfax doesn't fill the void, right? You can't.
No, Carfax is. I've already discussed this. Carfax is it's an optional private company, right? So like.
Yeah.
You can't trust anything on it.
Of course, but it's like look, if you buy a house, you do a title search right before you close.
True. Yeah.
There's no liens on it, right? I mean, if you're doing a significant purchase like this, it's almost like. I mean, I honestly, I would even think about doing that. It just sounds, this is so scary, the concept that you can give someone, we're just by virtue of the people you talk to, we're talking about the sellers, right? But can you imagine being a buyer coming in here and like you're doing nothing else but like making what you think is a legitimate transaction? There's no reason for you, in the same way that someone's leaving their car for consignment. Someone's walking to the showroom, they see a beautiful whatever.
Yeah.
They have no reason to suspect that there's going to be anything nefarious with it, right?
Right. And all of a sudden, knock, the police are there. Hey, we're going to take your car. It's stolen.
Right. Yeah. Who wins in that? Like,
I think there's I've heard both. I've heard that they say a buyer who came in good faith has the right to the car.
Yeah. I've
heard that's a lot of. So like, if you're the seller, you're out of luck, which is really kind of scary.
The con case, I remember they interviewed some of the people and they ended up coming to resolutions with, like the buyers and sellers ended up dealing directly and coming to some sort of resolution, and they both lost.
Yeah.
That's what it came out to, right? But, I think it was one case, like someone had the car and they ended up paying a little more to the title holder so they get the title. There's no elegant solution for this.
No.
It really isn't.
It's total cluster.
And that money, if it gets to that point, that the money is gone. You're not going to be able to.
Yeah.
I don't think Bobby Kahn had any money when he came back to the States.
No, definitely not.
So you would hope that, I don't know. It would just seem like the right thing to do would be to allow these people to get police reports so they can file a claim with their insurance company.
That would certainly make it a lot simpler.
And it just seems like ethically the right thing to do, right?
Yeah. I mean, because
this is a theft.
They're both victims. Like the buyer and the seller are both victims. Why should either of those people be out?
And did in any of these cases did the sellers, were they given? I don't know how consignment works, but do you have to approve a sale? Do you have to
Normally,
and
yeah.
like, is that part of the contract? Does it say
So,
like,
but that's the problem. So I was talking to this lawyer who deals with a lot of this stuff, and he basically said most of these contracts kind of have it sneaky in there. Where it basically says, we don't need your approval. We can make the deal.
yeah,
It basically and that's where other people have brought up, other YouTubers have discussed this, where a lot of times they'll do a deal that's below what you are owed based on the contract, but then they'll take that money and quickly go around and turn over 1 or 2 or 3 cars. They'll go buy another car, sell it, buy a car, sell it real quick, so they can go make an extra 10, 20, 30 grand or whatever real quick on your money, basically play the float. And then
Yeah.
and then at the end, well, we can now pay you your full amount.
right. No, it is. It just makes me feel like I don't think I'd ever go the consignment route. I have
Oh
to be
no,
honest.
I'm done with that. Never again.
It just sounds like, boy, what a risk.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, because your car's not insured. Like that was one of the things the lawyer told me. He's like, people don't realize it. When you take your keys and hand them over to someone else
yeah,
in a consignment situation, your car is no longer stored where it's supposed to be stored based on your insurance policy, and it's no longer in your possession.
that is crazy.
So
And
your
who would
car
have
is not
assumed that,
insured,
right?
huh?
Who would have assumed that?
Right. You'd never think that.
I mean, because all of them still had insurance policies they're paying for.
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
It's crazy.
It is. It's a sad story. I mean, it is, and like I said, it is. I'm still waiting. I'm sure there's a few more twists and turns to this one.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for something else to drop. But man, it's just amazing that once again, you can build a beautiful showroom, literally have this beautiful facade, and it's built on a house of cards.
Oh yeah.
Right? And all of us, I'm sure many of these people are, for most of them, are educated and thoughtful and worldly and, financially, savvy. And it's amazing. Like
And they
that
all got
concept,
played. Yeah.
They got all played, yeah.
And it's so easy as an outsider to look in and say, oh, you wag a finger and say, oh, you should have done this, should have done that. But I guarantee you most of these people would have been in the same situation.
Yeah, and that's exactly right, because it just sounds, and the thing is that it plays on that idea that it's almost it's a little too good to be true, but then again it's also quite not, and it's like, again, anyone who has sold a car, especially a high-end car, what a pain in the butt it is to deal with private sales, right? I mean, that's why many of us are willing to take a loss to trade it into a dealer, because you get the tax flip, but it's just a lot easier, right? I mean, it's just an easier process.
Walk up, show up, you're done.
Yeah, exactly. Versus, and I can understand that. I'm sure that was part of the pitch to these people, is that, give it to us, we'll put it on consignment, we'll sell it within weeks. Is what I listened to. What you talking to people, that's what they were told, right? The impression is to be a simple sale. We've got buyers lined up, and it'll be gone.
Well, and that's the whole appeal, right? You take it to the big shiny place because it's already well known.
Right.
And so it's like, oh, they've already got the foot traffic, they've already got the people coming in and out, and that's exactly what they sell them on, right? I'm sure that's part of their sales pitch.
I'm sure it is. And have you actually heard stories of people who've had actual positive transactions here?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, clearly there's been plenty, but it's funny because there was people who had similar stories going much further back that have contacted me, right? And it's funny because you look, here's the really deceitful and I'm going to say evil part of the whole thing, is that you go back and look at Yelp reviews, BBB reviews, Google reviews, anything that has a historical reviewing system of CNC Motors, and it's almost squeaky clean. And you're thinking, how, okay, and so all these people might have done some homework and said, oh, look at their reputation's great. They've got 4.5 stars and 100 reviews, they're all good, but multiple people confirmed this with me. Of course, I can't confirm it, but they said they were in a situation where he owed them money or owed them a title or whatever for months, going back years, many, many years. And he would say, basically, the CNC had the leverage on him and would say, if you remove your review, we'll give you your money.
Yeah.
And of course, someone's going to say, okay, sure, why not?
So, and again, we're speculating here.
Yeah.
What have you heard? I mean, in terms of, usually with this, obviously that seems to have hit a trajectory that is, much faster pace, right? Like it sounds like, he might have done this in the past, but it also sounds like maybe a majority of the sales were uneventful, right?
Yeah, I think it was probably way less common. It seems to me, based on all the data I've seen, that everything hit the fan around like September of last year. The majority of these sales all come in around, August, September, October, November is when most of these people said that they're like when they brought their cars in for consignment.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see.
Like, so I think something happened around that point. In my opinion.
and I well, to give a parallel that is not CNC, but a story that I worked on years ago. Well, it seems like years ago, a few months ago. It was a case actually of a law firm, and the law firm they have this thing called I forget, it's like legal financing, and they were just the concept is that if you have very similar to cars, right? So cars are, you have a showroom, your traditional cars, the dealerships finance the car on the showroom, and they're paying a fee for that. So there's financing plans for the dealers so that they can build a bigger inventory to sell. But if you're not moving cars fast enough, you can see that the VIG or the premium on that comes due. It's the same thing with law firm, and what they did, which was shocking to me, is that they had a $10 million basic credit line financing, and there were certain benchmarks they had to hit, otherwise the entire thing came due.
Who?
And obviously they were using that money to not. It was supposed to be for pursuits that were going to return on those pursuits. They were using it to basically cover operating costs.
Yeah.
And so obviously they hit a wall pretty quick because they obviously more was going out than was coming in.
You're right,
so
right.
And amazingly, the crazy part about this is somehow they were able to get right when they hit that KPI that like this would come due. And in fact, I think it did come to the finance tried to claw it back. They were actually able to arrange to get another $20 or $30 million in financing.
And then
so I just wonder,
kick the can a little further.
Yeah, right. And so of course, what's going to happen? It's the same thing. So now that $10 million.
Well, so I have an interesting theory on this. And again, we're speculating, right? So this is all in theory.
Spitballing.
Yeah, we're spitballing. Yeah. So he, in the video when I interviewed him, specifically mentioned that he had a $20 or $30 million line of credit. He says 30, I think, in the video, but in the actual edit, I think he said 20 or 30, but whatever. But he used, I believe, if my memory is correct, he used the past tense and said we had, not have, had. And so I wonder, like speculating, let's hypothetically, let's say he's got this $20 or $30 million line of credit to floor some cars. So he floors a bunch of cars, and maybe he's not using that money as he should, and so he's starting to rack up some deficit on that money by not having assets that equate to the value of that loan. And let's say he gets called out on it, or COVID happens and they call back that loan or whatever. Some reason that line of credit gets terminated, and now suddenly he's in the hole, whatever that deficit is, which could be $20 or $30 million.
Yeah.
And then so,
and that's
it could be.
It's very, very possible. We keep saying line of credit, but there's other vehicles like investment vehicles that are not actual line of credits, where there's, again, you have to hit certain performance indicator, benchmarks, and
Yep.
so who knows? But you know, it is interesting to me because someone like that, I shouldn't say someone like that. I would imagine that a dealership of note is going to be, or any dealership, right? They're going to rely on financing, some level of credit.
Absolutely.
We're talking about that 20, 30 day float for when they have to give you their money. I mean, they're clearly, financing is completely an honest tool and can, it's used in a way in a positive way that for most people it's never a negative experience, and allows dealers to build up inventory, and ideally they're going to keep turning that inventory out faster and faster. The problem is that if you are using that credit line, and again, the creditors who issue that credit line, they may not care what you use it for. Maybe you're supposed to use it for the cars, but you're taking it out. You've got something against that's securing that line of credit.
Yeah.
They don't care. They want to make their money. So it's
Yeah.
$2 million for your floor plan, but you're using it for operating expenses. We don't care.
Yeah,
You're still
whatever.
you still owe us $2 million plus whatever the VIG is.
Yeah.
So it's very possible, with things like that, if you're not careful, one can understand you can quickly find yourself, in some pretty dire financial straits, especially if you keep refinancing that and then, just
Yeah.
keeping the
Just
same behavior.
keep snowballing
So-
and snowballing it.
No, I know, and I hate to say it, but it's like one can almost imagine, and I think it was the same with going to Con. He was literally taking the money to cover not even the interest or the minimum payment for that credit line, so they wouldn't close the door on him. And
Yeah.
it's awful. And at that point, the writing's on the wall. You're in a hole you're never getting out of.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, so, gosh, what a mess. But I have to say thank you for even covering this, because, I mean, it's not just a public service to other people who might be considering using CNC. I got to be honest, buying and selling cars, it's given me a lot to think about. I mean, it
Yeah.
really feels like this is something that, I mean, I've sold cars to people and let them take my license plates when they've driven. It's just something because
Yeah.
you buy a car, the DMV is closed. What are you gonna do? You're gonna drive it home. You're not gonna let them.
Yeah.
Take my plate. Fine, it's fine.
Yeah. No worries. Okay.
Right, and it's never been a problem, right? I mean, I've had that happen. People very honestly put the license plate in the mail and shipped it back. It's no big deal. But it's these are things that honestly I never considered, right?
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know about you.
Oh no,
It's just-
I can fully admit that I was completely naive prior to this event. Not completely,
Totally.
but nowhere near as skeptical as I. Now going
No,
forward,
no.
I am going to be scrutinizing everything, and I'm going to be the biggest pain in the ass that any dealership's ever seen. Just because it's just after seeing this, I'm like, there is so much risk you never considered.
Right, that's right. And it's like I always thought if you go buy a car from a private party and you pay them in a bank check or cash and there's a note on it, it's fine. I have the car, right? So the car
Yeah.
is here. I'll be fine. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
Well, apparently quite a bit.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, and I've like I said, I put some calls out, and I'm happy if anyone wants to come back on the record and let me know what's anything. I'm happy to share with you. I reached out to the DMV and some other state officials, but it's again it's a frustrating thing because again, not just to commiserate with everyone who's involved in this. This is one of those things where I can see it's caught in the bureaucracy of one, is it who really has jurisdiction over this?
Mm-hmm.
2, what is the actual crime? 3, who are the actual victims? And we all agree something's happened here, but to do this formally, you
Yeah.
really have to define 1, 2, and 3, and it has to be ironclad, not
Yep. Sorry. Sorry.
So that's the one thing I would urge people, that it's really, that is a tough thing, and again, this thing can still take a few more twists and turns, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, from everything I've seen so far, we are still just scratching the surface. It's crazy.
It is great. Well, we'll
there's-
see. I don't know what happens to this guy. Maybe he'll be the next Bobby. He'll be the West Coast Bobby Conn. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Well, does he still talk to you? Does he still reach out to
No,
you?
no, he stopped DMing me. Yeah, I ghosted him, so I think he finally got the message. I actually wanted to keep egging him on because he actually was still trying to talk to me. Um, but I got pleas from my wife. Just she was like, just let it go, and I'm like, all
Oh
right,
yeah,
all
you
right.
you gotta. I can absolutely.
Like she's
She's
keeping me level.
smart woman. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I admit, like I'm in like I'm barely keeping my head above water.
No, you want to do the right thing. I get it, and
Right.
it's like, but there isn't. I think you've done your part by informing people, and it's unfortunately, uh, those people now have to. They're gonna have to come forward and file a report. It's just the only way. There's no way of getting around that. Like
Yeah.
there's just you Dan can't do that for
Nope.
them, and
No.
it's just the reality. And um, if this guy, again, speculating here, but for the things that he said, it's almost, if there really is a criminal it's almost pathological. Like he almost,
Oh,
it's the same thing with Bobby Kahn. Like
it's
it's almost like he
gotta be.
believed these things that he would tell people. Oh, your check's in the mail, I'll get it to you.
Oh yeah. I think
I
he
mean,
legit believes he's gonna make the situation right in his mind, in my opinion.
I think so too. Very, very clear. I mean, you would think most people who um, are died in the, like legit hardcore criminals probably know enough not to do interviews and to record.
Well, yeah, and arguably he had to like the writing's on the wall that like the whole thing's collapsing, right?
Yeah.
If he was a straight up like had planned this whole thing from the start, he would have been like, "Oh, it's exit time. Peace out." Which, like again, speculating that could be part of the reason he's selling so many of his hard assets, but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, look, and unfortunately, dealerships go out of business all the time. It's not an uncommon thing. And if someone declares bankruptcy and, they have to shutter the doors and the inventory is stuck there because of bankruptcy, that's a tough pill for everyone, but that's like the right way to do it. This doesn't sound like it's, the right way to do it by any stretch of the
No.
imagination. Like
No.
there's no like, oh, yeah, I get it. This makes sense now. No,
No, no.
boy, it's drama for Ferrari chat, right?
Oh shoot!
And every other board, to be honest with you.
I've looked. There's quite a few conversations on a few boards, which is good. It's bringing attention to it, and hopefully people are staying away. But
Yeah, but the whole thing with that is that I'm guessing a lot of the people that went there, may not be on any of these places, right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
The
No. There's. I mean, this is all assuming that someone's active out on social media,
right, and that's the thing that's so disturbing
and
about that.
that's honestly, from my perspective, that's what's making me so mad. Is I feel like I know my platform is limited. Like it has a limited audience. It is car enthusiasts, right?
Yeah,
For the
but you know
most
what?
part.
Google CNC right now and what comes up first,
Yeah, I know.
right?
Yeah, I know. It's
So
not
I
gonna
mean,
go. I get it. Yeah, yeah. It's not gonna
so
be like.
that's not nothing, and I don't mean that in like, look, I don't. Neither of us are trying to have a personal. Neither of us have a dog in this fight, right? I mean,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
we're not. We have no business with CNC. We have no. It's just So you're not actively trying to. Neither of us are trying to actively, go after anyone
No,
or
I,
right.
I, I, I'm purely doing this because I feel bad for the victims. I empathize with the victims. I feel like it could have
Yeah.
been me, and part of it is Shane asked for my help, and I feel like when you're a reasonably good human being and someone who even if they're mostly a stranger, if they ask for help and you have the means to help them, I feel like it's your duty as a good person to help. And
No,
the part I didn't realize is how much help that would need to be.
yeah.
you
No,
know?
look, I totally agree with you about Shane with one exception. He has a yellow Ferrari. I don't know how else
I know. Hey, I had to make sure that Megan didn't know it was yellow at first because she'd been like, "You're not helping this."
Yeah, I mean, come on, Shane. I think maybe Shane should consider this would have been resolved sooner if his Ferrari wasn't yellow. I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
It would
yeah.
have been like.
Definitely would have been helped way sooner.
It's weird. It's like all the 37 people you've talked to have yellow cars. I don't know what the deal is.
Oh man.
You're gonna find out that he's got the chain, that he's got a that CNC's got like a penchant for yellow cars.
Yeah,
We were
yeah.
both wrong. This was just all about amassing a collection of yellow
Yeah, yeah.
supercars.
It was all the single plot. I had to have the yellow.
Every single one.
Yeah.
One from every VIN number, right? You know, in this day and age, who, you know, would you be surprised? Sadly, not. But
No.
well, listen, this was a delight. I hope that I can help a little bit. You know,
Yeah,
have a little contact.
absolutely. I think that was first of all just bouncing off someone who's got some insights into this world is really helpful to me, and I hope
Sure.
helpful to other people. And I think you've articulated very well a lot of the questions that people have, and a lot of the concerns. You know, like just bringing up just generically about these sorts of transactions, and I think that's going to be tremendously helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that this is something that really I hope the car community, not CNC specifically, but this idea of, man, and you know, when we're talking about dealerships considering taking Bitcoin, you know, it almost feels, and it almost feels this idea of this simple, like, I'm going to give you cash and just trust you that you're going to give me the title. Like, it's just something that maybe there needs to be a better way to deal with that.
Oh, I think
Even
so.
with a dealership, it's something, it really is eye-opening because it's something I never considered. And
Yeah.
my
Well,
gosh,
I'll tell you right now, as a serial entrepreneur myself, I've already had conversations with some friends about how we're gonna try and resolve this going forward.
I mean, look, these are public records, right? You would think that, like, who has a note and all that, and
Yeah.
having like a lien holder or title holder or someone else, a third party that could, you know,
Yeah.
officiate a transaction would be the way to go. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
it would, you know, it seems like a small, even if it's a small service fee to pay for that.
Oh, it's worth
My
it.
God, what a peace of mind, right?
Yeah, especially on a $100,000+
Oh my
transaction.
God, yeah. But even
Like-
a $20,000, you know,
Yeah,
car,
yeah.
like,
Oh, yeah.
like, would you pay $100 to make sure that your transaction was secure? Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, how could you argue? Anyway, there is definitely something there, but boy, does it show. I just think back, it's sort of like, you know, we think back to our youth and all the stupid things we did. Now I'm realizing all the cars that I bought. Not only were some of them incredibly stupid purchases, but now I'm like really thinking, I got really lucky that no one screwed me over.
Oh,
Right?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
'Cause it's just,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
that's just a crazy. I mean, it just would have been so easy for someone to, you know, you buy a $10,000 car as a young kid or whatever, and they have
Well,
an $8,000 loan.
I tell you what, if I ever lose my morals, I know exactly what crime I'm going to do to make my money.
Yes, go after people with yellow cars. I know,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking.
100%. Well,
they're marks, I tell you.
well, I suppose I should let you get your life back on. We've been chatting for way longer than I thought, but
Yeah, hey, listen, this has been a treat. It's always a welcome reprieve to talk about cars, and even though it's an unfortunate circumstance, this
Yes.
has been enjoyment, and, you know, I hope that adds a little bit of both levity and information. And really, Dan, thank you for, even for me, like, these are things I feel watching you and listening to you doing this, at least I feel informed about something that honestly I would say was a pretty big gap in how I did something that was a huge financial risk without even considering it that. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's what people like you do. It's not just about the 37 people, it's that educating the larger audience. And honestly, you educated me, so thank you.
well, hey, thank you so much for the discussion and the entertainment. It was quite good.
Cool.
So-
All right.
I'm pretty sure this is a lot of you now. Oh, well, okay. Oh, I woke you up. Sorry. Well, I know that was long. That was a long video, Mo. I know. You're a trooper. Yep. You need some sleep there. As you can see, it's quite an interesting conversation. Lots of interesting stuff. The big thing you heard is I'm trying to gather the case numbers from the DMV, the incident numbers, and I think I want to try and compile those and present them to the Attorney General or the FBI or someone who can kind of make something happen. So that's the plan. If you happen to be interested in Naveed's book, How to Catch a Russian Spy, the link for it is in the description below. He didn't ask me to do that. I'm just doing it because, well, sounds like he's a badass. And also, again, if you happen to need any supercar parts, go check out my website, normalguysupercar.com. And if you happen to want to hire my services to help you buy or sell a supercar, again, reach out to me and we can set something up. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for watching this video. I do appreciate it. Give me the thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe. We will have more updates as soon as I have them, so stay tuned. It's going to be sweet.